And we're coming to you live for the Build Forward Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network and wherever you are on the free Odyssey app. Good Monday morning. Everybody is back to work. This is a longer than normal, or was a longer than normal break for a lot of people. So we got everybody back on the roads, everybody back on the trains, and we're going to be talking some football with you today as the Jets and Giants finally finish their seasons. We've got the playoff bracket set in the NFL. And, of course, today is Black Monday. We already saw the Falcons make a regime change. So what will we see around here? Probably not a heck of a lot. I think that Aaron Glenn is going to stay. Pretty sure that that's a lock. And then also Joe Shane seems like he is going to stay as well. But this Jets season could not come to an end quicker. Another embarrassment. Doesn't even look like they are an NFL team as they get blown out up in Buffalo by the Bills' backups. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. I'm doing all right. And you remember 4 weeks ago when I asked you the simple question, who would have a better record, the Giants or the Jets?
Yes.
And we both said we both felt like the Giants would end up with a better record.
And they win their last two.
And the reason for that is because they have a competitive quarterback. They put a kid out there that wants to win games, and he wants to show out. And, you know, if you think about Jaxson Dart over the last two games, that's the guy that's going to be the future of the New York Giants for the next 10 years. And if he stays healthy, he's got everything that you need to have to be a starting quarterback. And the good news for the Giants essentially is that they fall to the 5th overall pick in the draft, which means they're going to get a quality football player if they stay there. The bad part for the Giants is that at one point they had an inside track to the number one pick. And that number one pick, they wouldn't have used it as the number one pick. They would have used it to acquire even more assets, which would have helped the team for sure. But on the other side, the flip side, nobody tanks like the Jets. This is the worst in my eyes. In my eyes, this is worse. This is the worst team that the Jets have ever put out on the field, ever. And I was a part of one of the bad ones back in 1995. 96 was horrendous, but that roster was rebuilt, and they spent a lot of money on that roster. And Aaron Glenn was a part of that roster, but actually both rosters. But this by far was the worst season, and nobody tanked better than they did, and they tanked all the way up to the 2nd overall pick. So that means that you're going to have your choice of, you know, one of the two quarterbacks, if you actually like both of them, meaning Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza. And I kind of think that the Raiders are going to take Mendoza. I just you know, there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to take him. And then the question is Dante Moore coming out of college? He has not announced that yet. And the interesting thing is the both of them play against each other in a game coming up.
Yeah, which will be very interesting for everybody around here. Now, if you're Dante Moore, you're probably thinking next year's quarterback class, you don't really know, but next year's quarterback class on paper looks like it's going to be more stacked and more players in it. If you're going to be the 2nd overall pick,
you got to come out.
Exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm curious, though, because everybody will always point to the 1-15 Rich Kotite Jets as the worst. So the point differential, someone quickly in their head. Are you good at math in your head? Let's see. So I want to see the point differential of the 1-15 New York Jets under Rich Kotite compared to what happened here. Because I bet you that it's close because of how bad the Jets lost in the last 5 weeks. Like they had a negative point differential.
Yeah, nobody's ever had a December like they had.
Right.
And if you take their last 4 games, I think it's the worst 4-game run in a negative way than any team's ever had in the history of the NFL.
All right, so the point differential was negative 175 for the 1-15 1996 New York Jets. The point differential for this team in 2025, as we go to the extended standings. And, of course, it's not here because now it's all playoff stuff. Do you have the full standings there? Does anybody have the standings?
Listen, I can give you
here we go.
Worst December point differentials in the history of the league.
All right, here we go.
That's not overall, but go ahead.
All right, so minus 203 for the Jets.
Okay, which was 100 minus 107 in the month of December.
Right, so the 1996 New York Jets 1-15, a negative 175 point differential. The Jets of 2025, negative 203 point differential. Now, I had 2 more wins. But the way that this ended and this stretch has to be the worst. Now, the other team that everybody talks about is the one that led to the Zach Wilson draft pick, number 2 overall, which is very similar to what's going on here. Feels like the Jets have the second pick in a one-quarterback draft, which is what happened last night.
I don't know. The Dante Moore's a pretty good player, man.
Yeah, but remember what we were saying about Justin Fields that year, too? It was like, oh, Justin Fields. Now we got to look at Justin Fields. After they ended up taking or winning that game in L.A., and it was like, oh, okay, so it's not Trevor Lawrence, now it's Justin Fields. Now it's Justin Fields. All of a sudden, Zach Wilson comes up. Justin Fields drops a little bit. Ends up being a disaster for everybody but the Jaguars. But the 2020 New York Jets, let's take a look. Do we have the worst team in Jets history on our hands statistically? The 2020 New York Jets, they were 2-14. They had one less loss. And their point differential, points for and points against, is, well, I'm going to have to get it for you later. But I'll find that because this thing, of course, doesn't provide that for me. But those are the 3 teams. And you're telling me that the Kotite Jets were better than the Aaron Glenn Jets?
I think they were.
Come on.
I think they were.
It's almost impossible.
I believe me.
It's almost impossible.
I'm not talking about my team. I'm talking about the team after me.
I know.
Because the team that I was on was a team that was fully in rebuild mode.
Yeah.
You have to remember, when we started that year, before we acquired Charles Wilson from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the last week of training camp, we had 4 total receptions by 5 combined wide receivers in the NFL.
Wow.
And then we added Charles Wilson, who actually had a nice career. So he actually added to that number. But, yeah, it was a complete and utter S show, to say the least. And that was the first year. The second year, they spent a lot of money on free agency. That's why when Bill Parcells got here, he actually had a pretty good team.
So I present to you only 5 years ago the 2020 New York Jets, the Adam Gase Jets. Negative 214 in point differential, worse than this year.
Wow.
And they had one less loss. So could this be a recency bias situation?
It could be.
We forget how bad these teams are. I mean, and the way that the Jets ended this season, yes, it was as bad as it's ever been. But I think maybe the totality of it, 2020 takes the cake there. But this was, of course, I mean, we're talking about one of the 3 worst seasons in the history of the franchise.
All right, so now that the season is over, this is where Darren Muji and his staff take over. This is where they have to earn their keep. I think for the most part, they made some mistakes early on. They thought Justin Fields was going to be a stopgap guy, and that didn't turn out to be the case. They ended up staying with Brady Cook. That turned out to be, an unfortunate mess for him and that young man stepping into a situation which he was not obviously ready for, nor was the team around him ready for.
Yep.
So I don't want to blame Brady Cook, but they decided to stay with him because I think they wanted a really high draft choice and they wanted a shot at one of these 2 quarterbacks. And lo and behold, here they are with the number 2 overall pick and a better record than the New York Giants, who won their last 2 games.
Just want to go back to 2020 one more time. The quarterback who played 12 games of the 2020 season had a 2-10 record for the New York Jets. Sam Darnold, who's got the Seattle Seahawks as a number 1 pick in the NFC.
And he's only won, 25 games or something over the last 2 years?
In the regular season, 28 games.
28 games.
28 games, 14-3 and 14-3.
It's funny watching Rob Saleh and Sam Darnold the other night.
Oh, yeah. And how about Aaron Rodgers last night, who gets the Steelers into the playoffs? So,
yes.
I mean, if you're a Jets fan and you're still positive and you're still hanging on, then you are one of the real ones out there, because it's got to be borderline impossible.
Well, this is what this season's all about. Once they traded Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, it's about rebuilding the team, and this is where Darren Muji's got to take over, man. And Aaron Glenn's not going anywhere. He's got 4 years left in the contract. I told you last week that they are not firing a coach that they have that much money invested in. They want to give him a chance to see if he can get it right. He was a little bit contrite yesterday after the game, I thought. A little bit more realistic after the game. But how could you not be?
Well, he said it was he let the team down, and that hurts, and all of those things. And, of course, he's not battling with anybody. But this was as bad of a year for a head coach that didn't have a scandal, I think, that anybody could possibly have. I mean, really. If you think about it, he had to fire his defensive coordinator before the season started. They set NFL records of how bad they were in giving up points, and then also the first team since interceptions were recorded in 1933 to never have an interception.
And he's a defensive
back as a head coach. I mean, you could not have had a worse year as a head coach as Aaron Glenn had without having some sort of scandal. Which he didn't, and you don't have to worry about that part of it with him. But unfortunately, if you're the Jets, you have to bring him back because you gave him nothing to work with, especially at the end of the season. I hated the hire to start with. I hated the way the thing started, but quite frankly, to be fair, and the fact that he gave him this contract, he's got to come back for at least one more year, and your trust has to be that Darren Muji picks the right players and Aaron Glenn can coach those players as opposed to Aaron Glenn making decisions on players, because we both believe that Aaron Glenn had a huge influence in going out and bringing Justin Fields here. So if he's going to have a huge influence on the next quarterback, I'm not trusting him as much as I'm trusting the GM who has set this franchise up at least to bring in top-level talent. Now the real hard work begins. It's one thing to have the picks. It's another thing to make the picks. And Aaron Glenn became a head coaching candidate because Brad Holmes and everybody else Ray Agnew, everybody else out in Detroit built that team through the draft. That's why Aaron Glenn got an opportunity.
But that defense was never really great.
It wasn't.
I mean, it was okay. It was competent because the offense was just so overwhelming with Ben Johnson and Jared Goff. And, of course, they finished off yesterday by beating Chicago, but it doesn't impact Chicago's seeding as they're still number 2 seed in the NFC, which is amazing to me. And when I think about, teams that are now left in the playoffs, and I think about teams that have a potential of going farther than you would think, to me, it's the 2 teams that are in the number 5 slots in both divisions and both the
Rams.
Rams and Texans.
Yeah. And the Texans will be traveling to Pittsburgh as the Steelers win that game last night. It was shocking to me the way that game started, that the Steelers were able to hang in there and win the game. And they probably shouldn't have, because you're talking about a 44-yard field goal in 2025, which is a chip shot for these guys. I mean, I feel like 54-yard field goals are chip shots for the kickers these days, and this was a clear.
But the only reason that field goal could have won the game for them is because Boswell, the Pittsburgh kicker, missed an extra point.
Right, exactly. And it obviously would have tied the game, and they would have gone into overtime if he would have made it. But this is a clear mental shankopotamus situation. He pushed this thing right. I mean, he's a rookie kicker.
He had a great year though for them.
Yeah, well, everybody's going to remember this.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's wide right.
Yes, it certainly is, and you feel terrible for the guy and everything else, but maybe this is what makes John Harbaugh available, and if that is the case, then obviously the Giants are going to be hot on his trail, and he would be smart to pick the Giants over some of these other teams that are out there that are going to have openings, because as much as I don't love the overall work that Joe Shane has done, there's still some pillars there that if I'm a head coach and I'm looking at, and it has a lot to do with the quarterback, it's a very attractive job. And it's also, as bad as the Giants have been, one of the premier franchises in the NFL. Now, they got a lot of stuff going on. You saw Mr. Mara in the locker room after the game getting the game ball, and you could tell that he's struggling mightily. So that's going to play into a lot of what's going on.
That may have been his last game.
Yeah.
That's the sad part about the reality of it. And you saw how much the players really wanted to give him the game ball. And, listen, this is one of – you can't discount what's happened over the last 10 years under his stewardship. But prior to that, the Super Bowls, Tom Coughlin, Jim Fossil. I don't know if I'm assuming that John Mara was around that 2000 Super Bowl team and everything.
Sure. I mean, Wellington was still alive, but John was there, and he was part of the organization.
I mean, but he's also one of the most respected and most highly regarded executives and owners in the NFL. And I'm sure yesterday was bittersweet for him, to say the least. I mean, his team won. He sees that he's got a young quarterback that can lead the future of this franchise, and it's a Cowboy loss, which is always a good thing, no matter when or where it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. So with John Mara's looking at it one way, the family's looking at it one way, the players in the locker room are looking at it one way, and the fans are going crazy because they see the Raiders win later on in the day and say we could have had the number one overall pick if you would have lost this game.
But I'm just telling you, it just doesn't matter. Like to the players,
right.
Obviously to the coaches who are no longer going to be here, and to ownership, it doesn't matter. What matters is winning the game at the moment. Now, there are teams that were tanking. There's no question about it. I think the Raiders definitely tanked against the Giants, and I think Dallas definitely tanked against the Giants.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Having sitting those guys down, and then, that was the end of that. And you see CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott at the end of the game just sitting there laughing on the bench. I mean, there was no doubt about it that it didn't mean anything to them to win that football game. But there's going to be jobs out there. We know about the Falcons' job. It feels like Pete Carroll's going to be done, and the Raiders are going to have an opening there with the number one overall pick and probably Fernando Mendoza. But it was funny to me where, like, and this is one of those things that I thought of you when I heard this. It was like, well, Tom Brady wants to pair Brian Flores and Brian Daboll together. I mean, doesn't Tom Brady have like a 10% stake in the organization?
Well, yeah, but if Miami is hiring Troy Aikman as a consultant, Tom Brady's already a consultant.
Yeah, but that's what he wants to do. He's not the general manager. He's a part owner.
Yeah, but
he's not the general manager.
Who's his best friend? Spytek.
Oh, right. Yeah, John Spytek, the general manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
They're best buds, man.
Just make him the complete owner of the team, full control, president. I mean, he's hiding behind this 10% ownership stake, and it seems like he's running the entire team while calling games for Fox.
Well, good for him. It's Tom Brady,
I guess. I mean, it used to drive you crazy. It doesn't drive you crazy anymore.
You know what? I've come to not even worry about it. I mean, because obviously, whatever influence he had this year didn't work.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me, though, that he's sitting here and stuff is getting out about who he wants. Pete Carroll's still there as the head coach, and then there's leaks about who Tom Brady wants to run the organization while he's calling games yesterday.
This goes, it's part and parcel to today's world. They're going to ask him questions about it. He's going to infer something, then it's going to be taken as gospel.
Yeah.
It's until we see what's going to happen. And honestly, as much as I love Pete Carroll and as much as I love my 1 year playing for him, I mean, I was a little shocked he got the job, to be honest with you.
Sure.
At 72 years old, and I know he's a youthful 72, and I know there's something to be said about experience. But, I mean, he decided that Geno Smith was going to be his quarterback. And Geno had a really nice run here. His career has been really good. He got a lot of money, and he played well in Seattle. But even Seattle decided they wanted Sam Darnold instead. And look, Sam Darnold finally came through.
Yeah, he did.
He came through in San Francisco. Now, San Francisco's defense is a shell of itself. It is a brutally tackling defense. It's just they are terrible. I didn't realize how bad they were.
But they've been outscoring everybody, and they couldn't do it against the Seahawks. Completely shut down.
I'll tell you what, and they have a really crappy. They have to go to Philadelphia now.
Yeah, the Niners do. Yeah,
I mean, they're sitting there going, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we'll go to Carolina, who backs in. That's why I think the NFL, as much as I'm a big division guy and I love division rivalries and I love like the Giants and the Eagles, the Giants and the Cowboys, Giants and the Commanders, the Jets and the Patriots, Jets and the Bills, Jets and the Dolphins. I mean, to have a losing record and to come out in one of the worst divisions in football and make it and have a home game, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, especially the home game. So
I mean, they want the division to mean something, but I believe I would not be surprised if the NFL says, you know what, screw this. I mean, I'd much rather have either Minnesota or Detroit in there. And by the way, Minnesota ended up being better than Detroit in the record.
Yeah, well, they were not. They're both 9-8, but they had a tiebreaker over
Minnesota,
Detroit. Yeah. So I mean, they won their last 5 games, which is nice, but you saw 9 have to pull himself out of the game again yesterday. So, I don't know.
That kid's cuckoo for Cocoa
Yeah,
Puffs,
he really is. But he's going to end up coming back, and it's going to be a disaster. But, yeah, it was nice to see them finish strong. But, yeah, you had every single team in the NFC North finish above 500, and every single team in the NFC South finish below 500.
Yeah,